Hi everyone, it's Nichol Spohr. Welcome back to my channel and another felt stitching video tutorial. Today we are doing an introduction to the Felt Stitch and Create candy cane. This is perfect for all of your holiday decorating. In today's video, I am going to talk about 2 ways to stitch your candy cane together, and I'm going to talk about how to pair your candy cane with other felt stitching dies from the Felt Stitch and Create collection. This candy cane I'm showing you here, you get the base candy cane, the stripe layers that go on top, the leaves, the berries, and a layering berry piece. So everything you need to create the perfect candy cane plush. And you can even stitch this flat, and I will have more video tutorials sharing that later on. So what I have here are 2 layers of candy canes. You'll notice I have them back to back. To stitch it together to make the felt plush, you will want the stripes on both sides, otherwise you'll just have holes sticking out. There are stripes for both, but you want them to go back to back, so you will want to lay them like this. Ask me how I know. You don't want to stitch it exactly the same. They won't go together that way. And you also want to cut 4 of the leaves. It tells you right on the die how many to cut. 2 of the stitching berry, and then 1 of the round layering piece. For each of the stripes, you will cut 2. So 2 candy canes, 2 of each of the stripes, 4 of the leaves, and 2 of the berries. Now that we have talked about that, I did go ahead and die cut some batting for the stuffing inside my candy cane. If you've seen any of my other felt stitching videos in this collection, batting, quilt batting in particular, this is a thin cotton quilt batting is what I am using, is my preferred way of stuffing, as I find that it doesn't stress the stitching holes and I'm not having to work like polyester fiber fill in. You absolutely can use polyester fiber fill. You can stuff it with scraps of your felt, or you can leave it without any stuffing at all. That is perfectly okay too. I like to store my dies on these magnet sheets. These are Lawn Fawn magnet sheets that are 8.5 by 11. They fit in 8.5 by 11 sheet protectors, and I like to keep all of my dies on here. You can see the candy cane and the felt fox both fit on this sheet. This is so that all of my dies are laying out flat. You can find links to those sheets down in the description below. We're going to start today actually by stitching the leaves instead of the candy cane. If you've seen my video tutorials for the felt acorn house, autumn acorn house, pardon me, or the pumpkin house, then you know that I am stitching these leaves just like those. If you haven't seen them, I like to go ahead and layer the leaves together, and starting in between the 2 layers, I am going to stitch a straight line from tip to tip, stitching up and down each of the holes. This is because we want our leaf to look as beautiful on the back as on the front. And you don't want to do a traditional back stitch if you're familiar with needlework. If you aren't familiar with needlework, then you probably don't have any quote-unquote bad habits to get rid of. But I know that stitchers like myself, you do have to train yourself to stitch this way because it does provide you with a 2-sided plush item that looks beautiful on both sides. As I start coming back and filling in those stitches down the center, as I come to each vein in the leaf, I am going to again work my way out to each, going up and down every other one, and then coming back to the center and going out to the other side. We are going to do this for each vein in the leaf, and we're going to do this for both leaves. You can stitch these in any of the green or any color of felt, honestly, that you like to use. I, of course, am using the Spellbinders felt packs that were released with this collection. So again, I have worked my way back to the center of that first veining, come down to the next intersection, and I'm working my way out first to the left, and then I will work myself out to the right. I like to start in between the two leaf layers. That way when I come back, I end coming back out in between the two leaf layers, and I tie a little knot that then buries itself between the two layers of felt. I did not add any extra polyester fiber fill, quilt batting, or anything like that to my leaf. I find when you are stitching the leaf layers together, the two layers of felt plus a little bit of stitching, the embroidery floss, makes a very stable, very beautiful leaf. Now, I like to stitch with 3 strands of embroidery floss. I use DMC, and with DMC embroidery floss, there are 6 strands in your skein. So I pull 3 and I stitch with 3 for almost everything. If I ever stitch with less than 3 strands of floss, I will tell you in the video, but kind of know that if you see me stitching a felt item together, I am using 3 strands of floss. The stitching holes make it so easy and foolproof to know exactly where to stitch to put your item together. That is what I love about stitching dies. No need for templates or patterns and having to hand cut things yourself. All you do is run these through your die cutting machine. If you are not familiar with a die cutting machine, if you're brand new to die cutting, you will need a die cutting machine to cut your felt shapes. I recommend the Spellbinders Platinum. I like the Platinum 6 or the Platinum that has an 8.5 inch wide opening. Now, the 6 will work for any of the dies in this collection, and that is the one I used to die cut all of these. I will have a separate video tutorial kind of on all of the tips, tricks, and tools coming soon. Once I get to the end, you noticed I came out in between the 2 layers and then I knotted it, and I'm just going to trim away that excess. We will do the same thing for the second leaf. Look how beautiful that looks. So next I have my candy cane. For this candy cane here, I actually stitched the 2 base layers together. In this case, they were pink instead of white. I stitched those with pink embroidery floss. Then, being very careful, I pinched the 2 layers of felt for the front and the back, and I stitched those to the base candy cane. Now, the benefit of that technique is that the stripes are completely red. There's no pink thread showing on them, or in the case of the one we're stitching today, white, and the base is pink. I would consider it a little bit more of an advanced technique because lining up the stitching holes and holding everything in place can be a little tricky. It's definitely worth it if you want to give it a shot. Now, what we're going to do today is stitch each half of the candy cane individually and then stitch the whole thing together. So basically, we're going to stitch the stripes to each white part of the candy cane, and then we'll stitch the 2 white candy cane halves together. So here is what we're going to do. I'm going to take my candy cane. You can see that one of them I've already stitched, and I'm only going to stitch the long sides in the center of the candy cane. Using my red embroidery floss, and again, 3 strands of that embroidery floss, we are going to start on the back and we are going to stitch the long sides, not the outer edge of the candy cane, just the long pieces. I would consider this a little easier even for myself. Now, it is completely up to you how you want to do it, and that is why I'm showing you 2 different examples. I didn't stitch the other one on camera, but you definitely could do it that way. If I was stitching this flat, and you will see that in another video for another project, I stitched the candy cane solid and then I stitched the stripes on top, so it will look much more like the pink and red candy cane in the fact that there won't be any white floss going over top of the red. I don't really mind the look, and I think you guys won't either when you see the finished result. So I am simply, again, up and down each of the holes in each of the stripes on each side of the stripe of the candy cane. I'm just going to knot this here on the back. Now, everything inside of here is going to be hidden, so I'm not going to trim off every time I stitch a stripe. Now, in cross stitch, you definitely wouldn't want to travel and pull your thread, but for this, I totally don't mind. So if you would prefer to stitch each line and then knot it off or thread it underneath and start again for the next one, you can totally do that. I want to go all the way to the edge of the candy cane with my stitching, and we will do this for each stripe of the candy cane. You can do your candy canes in any of the colors. I think a rainbow like banner of candy canes would be adorable. You can combine candy canes. You can use these for bowl fillers, display fillers. If you have a tiered tray, you can tuck them next to that. You can thread a little twine through the top and hang it on your tree as an ornament. I will be showing you how to thread through a little bit of the gold metallic Vivant twine that Spellbinders sells through the top of your finished candy cane near the end of this video, as well as adorning it with some beautiful red Vivant ribbon, seed beads, and some sequins from my stash. So first we have to get all of our candy cane pieces put together. I like to do my stitching generally while watching TV, listening to an audiobook, or something of that nature, as it makes the time go faster. These are so much fun. Candy canes are a wonderful basic. Now, I know I talked about at the beginning of the video that you can combine this. Consider combining any of the other felt stitching dies from this collection with the candy cane. Turn the candy cane on its side like a branch, add the green hollyberry leaves, and tack your felt snowy owl to the candy cane so it's perched on the candy cane, and that would make a wonderful dimensional plush ornament. You can have your fox or your reindeer, because they are sitting critters with arms that are separate from their body. You can have them hold on to the candy cane. I will show you a photo of that at the end of this video. I think there was one at the beginning of the video as well. So you can tack that in place and actually make it a complete ornament that isn't two separate things. It can be the fox holding the candy cane. You can stitch the candy canes directly to pillows, canvas bags, tote bags, little zippered pouches, all kinds of things. Think about using any of the felt stitching dies to adorn them. It really, everything in this collection is so versatile that way, and there are lots of great ways to use them. You could also consider stringing, as I mentioned a minute ago, several of the candy canes together to make a banner. You could stitch these to felt banner pieces and have a wonderful little holiday-ish banner hanging from your mantle or from a display. The sky is the limit. If you ever aren't happy with your stitch, see how I am carefully pulling that out. I have unthreaded my needle and I am just carefully pulling out my embroidery floss, and I will just fix that stitch. I'm going to just kind of clean up the ends of my floss so that I get a little bit better, or it makes it a little easier to rethread my needle. And we will just start again. Now, as you run out of embroidery floss, you will just thread, well, I just threaded underneath some of those stitches on the back. You can also knot it if you want to. That is completely up to you how you want to handle that, and then snip off the excess. I'm going to go ahead and stitch the rest of these stripes down in place, and then we will meet back to stitch the two halves of the candy cane together. While I still have my needle threaded up with the red embroidery floss, and I did end up having a little bit of extra, I'm going to go ahead and stitch the berries together. Now that berry layering piece, it says right on the die to die cut 2 layers of this, and I die cut it from a slightly darker color of red than I use for the stripes on the candy cane, although you could use the exact same color if you want to. I'm going to do exactly like I did for the leaves, and I'm going to start in between the 2 layers and stitch around it, and then around again, up and down every other one, and then we are going to tie it off. I laid out some buttons here on my table because I wanted to show you could adorn the berries with buttons. You can use the layering pieces if you want to. I'm actually not going to use the layering pieces today. Those are available and you would glue those on, or you can tack them down with some little stitches if you want to, maybe a little white embroidery floss to give it some highlights, or you can do as I'm going to do, and I will embellish this berry layering piece with some sequins and seed beads. It is completely up to you. The sky is the limit. You can adorn the entire candy cane with sequins and seed beads. I would do that now as the 2 halves are separate, and then stitch them together like we will be doing here in a minute. It is completely up to you how you want to do that. Remember, at any time during the video, even when I have sped it up, you can slow down or speed up the video, or pause the video and rewind to rewatch any of it. When I get to the end of stitching the 2 halves of the berries together, and I did not put any batting or polyester fiber fill between these 2 layers either, I am going to adorn these with seed beads. Earlier I told you if I ever use less than 3 strands of embroidery floss, I will let you know. In this case, I do have a small beading needle. A beading needle is going to have a much smaller eye to it, so it will go through seed beads, and that is what I need for working with some seed beads. So instead of doing the layering pieces or the buttons, I'm just kind of showing you those here, I have my seed beads and sequins. I am using 1 strand of floss folded over in half, and I am coming up from the back of my piece with my small beading needle. I'll go through the center of the sequin, and then to tack and hold the sequin in place, you'll go through your seed bead, and then you're going to take your beading needle around the seed bead, not back through the center, and then through the center of the sequin. So again, we're coming up in the center of the next quote-unquote berry. We're going to take our needle through our sequin. Then we're going to take a seed bead and thread that on. We will take our thread with our needle, go around the seed bead, back through the center of the sequin, and to the back of the felt piece. We are adding a little bit of glitz and glimmer to the beautiful berries for this. We will finish by doing the 3rd one. I love being able to utilize a lot of these sequins and things that I have in my stash from years of paper crafting for these. So super fun and a very easy and inexpensive way to embellish your felt pieces. Kind of look around your craft room and see what you can use to embellish. Today we're using sequins, seed beads, ribbon, and even a little gold twine to embellish this candy cane. Okay, now that we have our berries stitched and embellished, we're going to set those aside, and it's time to put together our candy cane. So for this, we have each half of the candy cane stitched with the stripes, as I mentioned earlier. We also have a piece of batting that I've die cut with the base layer of the candy cane and trimmed off the excess around the edge. The reason you trim off the excess is I don't want to be stitching or going through 4 layers. I am going through the layers of felt. I don't want to go through layers of batting or anything like that for the stitching. So I like it just to fit right within the stitching line, as you can see here. I just messily take my scissors and trim that away, and this is going to provide just the perfect amount of batting. I think that if you want it a little thicker and your batting is thin enough, you might be able to even add 1, maybe 2 more layers without stressing the stitching holes too much. Now that we have our 2 halves of our candy cane and our batting in between, we're going to start in between the 2 layers of felt again, and that's because we want to end between the 2 layers of felt, and we are going to stitch the perimeter of our candy cane. Up and down each stitching hole. This is crucial for the creation of your plush, as you don't want it to be ugly on the back by doing a traditional back stitch. This is more of what you would call a running stitch, up and down each hole, all the way around the perimeter of the shape. And once you get back to where you started, you can either go around again if you have enough thread. I do find that I do not. This is a pretty long way all the way around. So I will come back through the 2 layers, knot it, get 3 more strands of white embroidery floss, and I will start and go around again to fill in all of those holes. This part is simply just the time it takes to go up and down. You'll notice that with my wrist, I am right-handed, so I hold the piece with my left hand and I stitch with my right. I am flipping it, making sure I am lining up those stitching holes each time. The reason I do this is so that when I am finished, I have a beautiful straight stitch and the stitches aren't wonky or skewed. Yes, there's stitching holes, but your needle is generally sharp enough that it will go through the felt. So it will go through areas that you may not want it to. I'm just making sure here that I am hitting those stitching holes and getting that beautiful straight line all the way around. I'll continue to do this until I get back to the beginning. Again, I will knot this. I'll come back through the 2 layers. I will knot it, and then I will snip that away so it buries the knot between the 2 layers. I'll get 3 more strands of floss and go around again. The most important thing is to make sure that you are lining up the stitching holes. If you have clips, you can use those to hold the layers together. I like the quilt binder clips. You can also use sewing pins if you want to, although I don't find that they hold things quite as straight as I would like. I do use them every once in a while. You'll see me use them. Or sometimes I'll just hold it. Oh yeah, I actually have a clip on there. So those little clips there do come in handy. They almost serve as a third hand, if you will, to hold things in place so it's not shifting a bunch as you're using that motion, flipping your piece back and forth. I do find as you stitch more that you kind of start feeling those holes in the felt. Okay, once we get to the end, here I am knotting it, and I am going to tie that off in between the layers. That's going to bury that little knot there. I'll just snip that away. And you can see that this is what it looks like where the white goes over the top of the red. But I think it's super cute. I actually really, really love this. All right, we want to embellish our candy cane. Here is the fun finishing part of this. I want to add my hollyberry leaves and my berries. I think a little ribbon will be pretty. And if you want to make any of these felt shapes into an ornament, here's how I like to do it. I love the metallic cords from Spellbinders. It comes in rose gold, gold, or silver. We're going to use gold today. I'm going to thread my needle with just a little bit of this. And because it's nice and thin and I'm using a nice sharp needle, I am going to find the seam of my ornament and I am going to work my needle in between the layers. And I'm going to kind of take it right through the top where I think it should hang. And once I've threaded it through, I am going to go ahead and pull those ends together and knot it. And then I'll just snip off the excess. This instantly makes any of the felt shapes into a hanging ornament for your tree or to hang onto a package as a tag. I love using them like as a tag / ornament for the recipient. I think that is such a fun idea. And in addition to that, I also want to make a bow. This is a bow tool that I have, and I am using the 2.5 today, and we're going to make a triple bow with this beautiful red Vivant ribbon. This is a Spellbinders ribbon. We're going to do a figure 8 around the tongs on this. Oh, so I have a little sticky on my ribbon. Let's start again. This is a brand new roll of ribbon. Okay, we're going to hold it with our left hand and we're going to do a figure 8 around this 3 times. So there's 2, here is 3, and as I come back around that 3rd time, I am going to take the end of my ribbon, thread it through that center part, leaving a little loop. And as I pull around, I am going to pull this end through the loop and pull it tight. And I'm going to pull tight, try to get that knot right in the center. And then when I am happy with my bow, I'm going to slide it off of the bow tool. Then I can fluff out the loops on my bow, and we are going to glue the berries to the center of this and then tuck our leaves underneath. It's just a fun way to add additional embellishment to your felt piece. Spellbinders has tons of amazing, beautiful ribbons, and I encourage you to check them out if you haven't already, and maybe add a few to your stash. So looking at this, I think that is going to be very pretty. I love how that's going to look. And you have a couple of options. You can use a liquid glue. You can tack it down with a little stitch if you wanted to, if you want to avoid glue altogether, or I love a little hot glue. I'm going to use my Spellbinders hot glue pen, and I am going to hot glue the berries with just a little dab of glue right to the center of my ribbon. Kind of careful with that, and I want to fluff the loops. I don't want them to get stuck, kind of smashed down at this point. Once I'm happy with that, I will add a little additional hot glue on the back, and we are going to hot glue this right to our candy cane. And only a little bit. I'm not going to add tons. And I'm going to figure out exactly where I want that to go. I want to leave the tails on my ribbon a little bit longer. And once I'm happy with that, we will put glue on it right there in the center, just a little bit. And then we're going to glue it down, and we're going to add a little bit of glue just to one end of the leaves because they're going to stick off the side of our candy cane a little bit. And because they stick off the side, you definitely don't want any hot glue or anything showing. And you want to add just a little bit here, and then we're going to tuck that underneath the loops of the bows and those berries, and we're going to attach both of these. So just a little bit there, and then I'm going to lift it up a little, just kind of push that down in place before it's all the way dry. There's one. Let's go ahead and do the second one. And that is it, friends. I hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial featuring how to stitch together the felt candy cane from the Felt Stitch and Create collection from Spellbinders. Now, again, remember you can add the candy cane or pair it with any of the other dies from this collection for a completely fun and unique look. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for another felt stitching tutorial. The supplies I used to create this candy cane are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for joining me today for another paper crafting tutorial. I love being able to share with this incredible community of crafters. I want to give a huge shout out and special thank you to my amazing Patreon members. If you're interested in joining Patreon, please click the link in the description underneath the video here on YouTube. Patreon is a private community where you can support more of what I do. There is exclusive content, information, and behind-the-scenes content. Top-tier members will receive a handmade birthday card during your birthday month, access to D-Stash, and monthly exclusive lives, plus so much more. We would love to have you join our growing community.